Persuading people to take the actions we want can be hard. Our teams and clients are bombarded with thousands of messages every single day. But there is a way for you to get above the noise. Stories. This is the Stories with Traction podcast, and I'm your host, Matt Zaun. Join my guests and me as we unpack the power of storytelling. We'll talk about topics like leadership, sales, and marketing, all through the lens of strategic storytelling. Enjoy this episode. One of my favorite questions to ask the high achievers, individuals that are uber successful, they have incredible accomplishments in life and business, is if you could radically expand your ability to inspire, what would you want to happen? I've asked this question now to hundreds and hundreds of people over the last couple of years, and the number one thing that comes up to the surface is I want to build a large and lasting legacy. It always comes back to legacy. One of the ways to do that is through corporate social responsibility. And that's why I'm really excited for today's conversation, because today I invited Dan Koval back. For those of you who listen to the podcast regularly, you know that Dan Koval is the corporate initiatives manager at Bentley Systems, and he is incredible at creating really unique and creative ways to get companies involved in giving back and pouring into the community. Dan, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Love being here. Love being able to share my experience and hopefully provide some extra value to your audience here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to dive right into legacy. So legacy is a pretty large concept. So I think typically when people think of the picture of legacy, they think someone giving of themselves into the community, into their family, and then after they pass away, this legacy lives on. So basically, it's focused on generational change. It's not just being here one moment and then you leave and nothing good really happens. It is you've built such an incredible legacy with your actions that it outlives you. And I really wanted to have this conversation about CSR because there's so many incredible business leaders out there that they reach an incredible level of success and they want more. They have it all, they've seen it all, they've done it all. Now what, right? How do they actually bring about lasting change that outlives themselves? It sounds deep, but that's what we want, right? We want to have an incredible impact in a big, big way on our community. So what are some of the ways that you think CSR, corporate social responsibility, can help forge that legacy?
Good question. I think, so I want to take a half a step back and talk about why I think the human condition desires that legacy, right? I believe that we as humans want to be remembered. We want our name to live on. We want our life to have purpose beyond the breaths we take, and we want it to continue on beyond us, right? It's the reason why, if you have the ability to, you leave something to someone else, right? That's why there's fights in fighting in families when a last will and testament is read, right? People want what you had and they want it to be passed on. And so I believe that the idea of legacy, the idea of being able to pass something down, be able to live beyond your own existence, I think is just part of the human condition. And so the way that transitions into CSR is, I've seen it time and time again. Businesses come, businesses go, businesses get bought, businesses get sold, right? I mean, you are one of my favorite examples of your Blockbuster t-shirt, right? You know, a t-shirt says make it a Blockbuster night, and we can laugh about, oh man, Blockbuster came and went. But what if during their heyday, Blockbuster had a program that benefited the community, that instead of just simply renting and borrowing DVDs and VHS tapes, Be Kind, Rewind, what if they had a program where on Sunday mornings you could have done like a food donation drop, or Saturday night you could drop off canned foods and then people could come by on Sunday morning to pick it up, for example, right? Like, what if they had made that part of their strategy was, hey, we've got these locations, we're in these communities, we're serving our neighbors. What if we used our facility to do something else? I'm not saying that that would have saved Blockbuster from eventual demise, but I think it would have changed the perspective that people have looking back at the Blockbuster brand. So, for example, what is there was some of the there's a building in New York, not Wanamaker, the other guy, one of the other like railroad tycoon guys. I'm completely blanking
It
on his
wasn't
name.
Rockefeller, was it?
Rockefeller, yes, absolutely, right. He was pretty generous, I believe, with his funds, wasn't he? I mean, like I think that when his name comes up more so, people don't tend to remember all the cash investments and whatever else that he did. Like I think people think about the impact that he made in people. I think that right, like Gandhi, right? You think of the name Gandhi, you don't think about how much revenue he made, right? I don't know that he made a whole lot, but you think about the positive impact he had in so many other people's lives and the example that he was for doing good to others. I think that there is this intrinsic value that when we're able to instill positivity in the world, that will remain. Yes, negative examples remain all the time. That's what history books are for. But I think that those that we hold most dear, that we treasure ourselves, are the good memories.
That's a really good point. I do want to talk about stages in life, though, and life cycles of a business. I kind of go hand in hand in many ways as far as
Mm-hmm.
timing is concerned in different seasons. And I want to bring that up because I feel like a lot of times, especially in the United States, we really peg certain times to do things. And you mentioned some very successful individuals, and I don't want people to think that they have to wait until they are a lot older and they're just flush with tons of cash before they feel that they could start the process of building a legacy. So I want to talk about that. So yes, you have corporations out there that are bringing in significant profits that, just a little tiny droplet is a ton for a nonprofit. And yes, that's awesome, right? Like we need corporations to give back to their communities. I think that is paramount to the success of a nation. Then you can kind of take it back a little bit and say, okay, those are the corporations. Then you have medium-sized companies. And, Dan, you and I had talked about there's so many different creative things a medium-sized company can do that maybe they don't have tons of revenue coming in, but they could be very creative, renting out space, building different partnerships. They can do different skill shares with nonprofits. We might get into that a little bit, but let's take it even further. Let's talk about a small business or even a solopreneur. So someone that it's just themselves, they act more as a consultant. Obviously, they don't have thousands of people working for them. Obviously, it's not good for them to say, oh, I'll wait, 2 decades before I think about actually having an impact. What would you say to them as far as starting now versus waiting?
Compound interest, right? The reason that any financial advisor worth their anything would recommend you investing early in your 401k, the reason that anyone would recommend you to pay a few extra bucks on your mortgage when you first get it, the same reason why anyone would suggest that you start saving money now for a rainy day, is compound interest. Because once you create the habit of giving, of helping, of serving, of whatever, then you will eventually, it will continue to compound for you. So I love to have this conversation with solopreneurs because they themselves are the champions of compound interest, right? They're the ones who are out there doing everything themselves. However, if they just made a minor tweak, made a minor change, stacked a habit, right? I love James Clear's concept of habit stacking from Atomic Habits. It's one of my favorite things in the world. What is it you're doing right now that you could just throw something else on there to help someone else out? So for example, if you were a solopreneur and you were doing, let's say you're a graphics designer, right? And your whole thing is you get these contracts, whether you're working off of Fiverr or you're working off of your own Rolodex of, of contacts. Sorry. I left my own hilarity Rolodex. But anyway,
Haven't heard that word in a while.
I know I
keep,
try to bring
keep
back the
going.
notes. So if you're working off your own context and you're creating graphic designs, right? And that's what you do. You live and you breathe, and these are the skills. This is what you're passionate about. And you're doing these things. Okay, so maybe you have 5 clients that you're working with. Well, couldn't you work with one more that's maybe an area nonprofit? That's maybe, you know, whether it's the girls club at your local school and they need a new logo, or the local robotics team, or the library is having a book sale. Like, there are things in your community that need your help because you have a certain set of skills. Not that you need to be Liam Neeson, but because you do things professionally. And especially the solopreneurs, because I believe a lot of times you have a lot more flexibility in what you do, right? Hopefully you've got contracts with your clients and you're setting expectations, and you tell them, hey, I'm gonna need 3 more days to deliver you the deliverable you're asking for, because I'm also serving this local homeless shelter by designing them an infographic that helps explain to their corporate partners where the dollars are going. Man, doesn't that open up a conversation? Doesn't that start opportunity for you to start expanding and connecting and networking with more people when you start doing these things? I think solopreneurs miss the boat of the compound interest opportunity of starting small and having regular, consistent connections with area nonprofits.
Yeah, I really appreciate the starting small aspect, because I have spoken to a lot of solopreneurs about CSR, and they almost feel like it's not for them because corporate social responsibility. I'm not a corporation, right? What could I do with it? But it's amazing when you actually talk with them and you say, what is something that you're really passionate about? And they see the strategy behind it. I was recently talking with someone that her passion was regarding the American Health Association. Okay. No, I'm sorry, not health, Heart Association, American Heart Association. And there was a very specific reason for it. She had a personal story regarding something that happened within her family regarding a heart issue. So she was obviously passionate about it. And also, it really tied in to this individual's prospects and clients. Okay, very, very specific. And it was almost bewilderment as far as reaching out to organizations that really tie into that to help her expand her business in numerous ways. It helps with the messaging, it helps with obviously the storytelling, it helps with networking, right? You mentioned compound interest. Networking is something you absolutely want to start ASAP. You don't want to wait until you need to rely on your network, right? And I learned all that from you, Dan, and the conversations that we had about how everyone, wherever they are in business, can utilize CSR. So I really much appreciate you mentioning that. Let's talk about the strategy behind that. What are some questions that people can ask themselves to try to figure out who should they be starting to build that partnership with?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct in that. What are you passionate about? What are you interested in? What causes resonate with you? What commercials that you see on TV where the Sarah McLachlan song is playing in the background brings tears tears to your eyes, right? I mean, I'm like, listen, you show me the puppies in the cages, and I'm like, man, here's some money. You know, I think it's, and whether it's you personally or something, just like you said in that example of that other solopreneur, it's, what has your family been through? What experience have you been? I will share the story that the company I work for, the number one reason why we give back to the level that we give back is because there was a family situation that occurred that there were, like, even if they were like, and this is back when the company was founded almost 40 years ago, there was a family situation that occurred that even if at the time these people were as well off as they are today, they couldn't pay for the services. The services weren't commercially available. However, there were community organizations that could provide support and help and advice and direction and advocacy for this family and the situation that they were facing. And because of that, because the community came in and rallied around them, and provided them the care and the support, they then felt the responsibility to go give back in perpetuity, right? To continue to give back for the rest of time. And so because of that, they're creating a legacy of giving through this situation. Started small, right? They were brand new, they were young entrepreneurs, they were new to the business. It's the mid 80s, right? No one starts a software company in the mid 80s, but they did, and it's gone well. And because of that, and because the relationship has grown, now it is where it is today, where they're giving lots and lots of money, and they're leveraging their employees to give too. And so I think that finding whatever that is, whatever it is that sparks your interest, whatever, makes your heart beat a little faster, makes your eyes well up a little bit. If it's important to you, it's probably going to be important to somebody else too. And it doesn't have to be for everybody. It matters that you're connected to it so that you can continue serving, giving, helping long term and continue that compound interest.
I love that story that you brought up about hardship, then making it, and then giving back. And I want people to recognize that. Maybe another good question to ask as well is start thinking about significant stories in your life. So if I were to ask everyone listening, share with me a significant story. Typically, we focus on big relationships and big events. Okay, big relationships and big events. So more than likely for you to share a significant story, you're going to be thinking about different relationships you have, maybe a spouse, maybe a child, maybe a parent, or big events. Maybe someone got laid off and then they started a business and then the business exploded with growth. That's where we go to. If someone were to do something as simple as that exercise, they may start the process of identifying where they can develop the partnership with CSR. So as an example, I recently asked this question of someone, and this person said to me that there was an instance where there was a gentleman who was a client. So there was a gentleman that was a client of this business, and this individual was a veteran. And because of his service, he was in active war for quite some time. So he was over in the Middle East, and then he came back home. He started to develop a family and grow a family, and he ends up passing away. And he actually had some of the items of this client, this veteran, that he gave to the son of this individual. And then he told me he recognized that there was more and more veterans that were clients that were buying his services. They didn't actively go out and try to seek out veterans. That's just the way that worked. So that simple story, now he's sharing it. What are the common themes? Veterans. So that individual might want to find organizations in their community that support veterans. That would be an awesome way to give back to the community, especially if that is a lot of your clients. So I appreciate you mentioning the story that you mentioned, Dan. It's just simply telling stories to ourselves and then pulling out themes. And there's a lot that we can learn in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for myself, looking back at my lifetime, I'm very fortunate that oh my gosh, I think my parents just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. I grew up in the city of Philadelphia. I'm a product of the Philadelphia public school system. My parents are still married to this day. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. We didn't have much of what we wanted, but we had everything we needed growing up. And so part of that, like, I feel I had such a good opportunity myself that I want to make sure that everyone else has a reasonable opportunity as well. And I want to make sure that they have every opportunity that's afforded to them that's possible. And so that's why I love mentoring the next generation of kids, right? Being able to go into local schools and being like, hey, I don't know your family situation, but I know that when you have adults in your life goes on a better trajectory than trying to have to figure out yourself at the age of 12, right? So whether it's you come from adversity, like the founders of the company, or even those that have served the country overseas and whatnot, or you come from a situation of you recognize that, hey, maybe there wasn't a lot of lack in your life and you are thankful for that, and you want to give back in reciprocity to, hey, I was afforded certain opportunities myself. I want to make sure that other people get access to these opportunities too. And so let's go Let's go make everyone else, or let's provide the opportunity for other people. You want to take it, take it. You don't want to take it, don't take it. But if you don't ever have the opportunity, man, that stinks.
Sure, sure. So let's take this a step further because I really like this story piece. So you shared a story, your parents growing up in the Philadelphia school district, and your willingness, your desire to give back, so people have more of an opportunity. And it's amazing the stories that we share. Right, there's so many different themes that we can unpack with what you said. Let's take the example I gave and kind of expand it a little bit more about this company, because I think that it'll give people an example of where they can go from here. Okay, so you start sharing significant stories, you start pulling out different themes. So in this case, you have this company, it's a medium-sized company. They recognize that there's a lot of different clients that are veterans. The owners of the company aren't veterans themselves, but they have a heart for veterans. They're very happy that they live in a country that has the freedom that it does. So now they've identified, okay, this becomes a reoccurring theme that a lot of our clients are veterans. Obviously, there are nonprofits that help and support veterans. So let's take it from a once and done to more of a partnership. So some companies might say, oh, here's a veteran organization. Let's just chuck money at them. Okay, a once and done. Let's just go on their site and give them some money. That's one way to do it. And I'm sure they're not going to turn away your money. But how can they take it a step further and start the process of building a partnership with them?
Absolutely. I think that one of the, and I'll probably get my hand slapped from many nonprofits for this statement, but I think the least concern of most nonprofits is actual money. What they really want is they want those partnerships and those relationships to last long term, because in the example you're giving, that medium-sized company has access to so many other things that a nonprofit focused solely on, say, the care of veterans doesn't have access to, whether it's distributors, it's marketing, it's other markets, it's other connections. There's so many things that a business or business owner has access to, or could provide access to these nonprofits, that is just this amazing relationship that the business is going to feel good because they're helping out that section of the community that they want to help out. In this instance, again, it's veterans. But then that organization, if you're having a conversation, right? Relationships are based on conversation. It takes two sides to have a conversation. It takes listening to have a conversation. And so in this example, if the two organizations are conversating appropriately and developing that relationship, they can say, okay, the veteran organization says, listen, we'll take your money, but what we really need is we need people to come down here on Saturday mornings and sort through all the donations that we've gotten all week long so we can distribute them. Nobody wants our staff works Monday to Friday already. We don't have the space to do the sorting Monday to Friday. We need to do it on, like, logistically, Saturday is the only time we can do it. Do you have 2 or 3 people at your company that can come down on Saturday morning for 3 hours and sort through all the socks and undershirts that we have? Man, what a great team building activity! What a great photo opportunity! What a great way to connect your company and your culture and your mission to the actual community that it's serving. Like, whereas, hey, listen, a check for thousands of dollars is awesome, but that check for thousands of dollars might not provide that personal touch of 2 or 3 people just showing up on a Saturday morning to sort through donations, right? So it's having that conversation more so with the nonprofit organization to find out, hey, how can we best work together to develop and strengthen this partnership, as opposed to being like, oh, well, I know what you need. You need this. And relationships don't work that way.
Yeah, it's really finding out how they need to be helped. And again, they're probably not going to turn away money, but based on your example of they need someone to come on Saturday and sort through things, and that company has the ability to open it up to employees to do that, and that's what they really need help with, that's going to go a lot further. And also the money piece, the more they get involved, the more they're going to want to financially invest as well. So it's almost like you probably turned some heads when you said nonprofits, the main thing is not money. But when you think about it, someone can give several thousands of dollars once and done, or they can get involved and then they might end up giving tens of thousands of dollars because now their heart's more in it. So I think that the strategy and the partnership is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think that so one of the situations that happened for us here at my company is we developed a relationship with a local homeless shelter, and I get the monthly newsletters in the mail. And the executive director, at least for mine, I don't know if he does it for everybody, I don't know, but at least on mine, he wrote, "Hey Dan, great story on the back of this newsletter. Hope you get a chance to read it." So, assumably, what I did was because he took the time to handwrite me a note, I flipped it over, I read the back of it, and it was about a gentleman who was recovering from addiction and was, had to borrow the one suit that the homeless shelter had, and he was able to go out and find a job and yada, yada, yada. So I read it, and the executive director, all he wanted me to do was just read the story and feel good about the situation. Whereas I read the story, felt good, but then said, "Hey, I bet you we can make this situation even better." So I called the executive director. I said, "Hey, we're going to do a suit drive because it sounds like you don't have enough suits over there. So we've got a lot of people that are working from home now that have jobs, that have suits, that don't really wear them very often. So we're going to do a suit drive." And all of a sudden, we had 25 or 30 suits that we dropped off to this homeless shelter because the executive director took a moment to write me a personal note on a generic newsletter. And then I thought about it for a minute and thought, hey, sure, could we have given them $10,000 to buy those suits? Absolutely. But it was like a week and a half turnaround time. I called them, we sent some emails out to some coworkers. All of a sudden, we're driving over all these suits, and it's like the homeless shelter is not in the suit buying industry. And for them to go out and find the right suits, or, it would have been more of a burden to give them that money and earmark it that this money only goes to buying suits. I think one thing that corporations do is they earmark a few too many dollars. That's my own soapbox rant for another day. But if the choices were give them the cash or give them the clothes, I can only imagine that they were significantly more blessed by getting the clothes because now they had physical, tangible objects that they could use and give to their clients who can then go out and do interviews.
Do they need ties to go with these suits? I have a closet full of ties I haven't worn in years that you just inspired me. I made a note to give away my ties.
There you go. Amen.
You got to connect me with this guy. I'll see if I can give him my ties. So no, that's again, that goes back to being intentional. We talked about intentionality numerous times about, yes, some things take work, but you put work over here or you put work over there. It's us being intentional. And it's amazing the small things, how many ripple effects can happen. So as a very brief example, I do numerous meetings, I do numerous events, and it's amazing the people that take the time to just simply walk me out to my car. Like the event's over, instead of just saying bye with a handshake, they kind of walk you out. This literally happened the other day where this gentleman walked me out to my car. We had a 20-second conversation. He saw me off and I'm like, wow, like that took 20 seconds. But there are so many people that don't do that. There's so many people that you have a meeting and it's like, bye, have a good day. It's like it took 20 seconds. In your instance regarding the suits, you made a phone call. You offered it up to other team members at your company. They brought the suits. They felt good about it. It's like, it's not like you were moving a mountain. It's something that took work, and it wasn't that much work, but it was so intentional. So I really appreciate you mentioning that, Dan. What are some other creative ways that people can be intentional that you think?
I mean, I think a lot of it really does come down to having your ears or your eyes open and just looking around you, right? So whether it's, what you drive by school whether you're going on a commute or you're just driving through town, you're headed to the grocery store and you notice things, right? Is a sign on a building or organization out of place is the local soccer team's sign. I will say this, like I noticed the other day, and I forgot to make an actual note of it, was the sign outside of the fire station by my house. They have like a vinyl sign hanging up. One corner fell off the sign. And I was like, I bet you with me, a screwdriver and a screw, it would take me 3 seconds to fix that sign and make it hang there properly so that the people driving by would read it. I haven't done it. I'm probably gonna have to go make myself a note to do it now. So you can follow up in the future episode to see if I did it or not. But there are things that you're passing by in life. And if you're just simply playing cell phone as you're driving down the road, you're probably not going to notice the world happening around you.
Or you're going to get in an accident, but that's another episode.
Yeah, stay safe out there. But I think I myself am super guilty of being selfish and thinking about what I want to think about, thinking about the things that I need or the thing that I need to get done. And sometimes it just takes that one moment to just step outside of yourself and look around your community, look to your left, look to your right, and just say, where can I help? Who can I ask if they want help? Right. I think that's the other big thing, right? It's one thing if if it snows, I know my neighbors don't mind if I snow blow their sidewalks, right? They love that. However, if a shingle's falling off their roof, I don't think they want me climbing up on their roof and hammering it back in with a hammer and nail at 6 a.m. Right. So just understanding and having that conversation that we kind of talked about, like what does the organization want? What can they use? How can that relationship and that partnership work together? And so looking around and asking questions. How can I help you today?
Again, simple, but so powerful. So powerful. It all goes back to being intentional. So Dan, thank you so much for your time. Again, I got a lot out of our conversation. I just want to do a brief recap because there were some things that really stood out to me. I really appreciate you mentioning compound interest and starting now, not waiting 20 years for you to start the process of building a legacy, but actually starting now. And wherever someone is in their business journey, whether they're a solopreneur, whether they run a small company, a medium-sized company, or even a large corporation, they have the ability to give back. I also really appreciated what we processed together regarding significant stories, actually asking ourselves, what are some of the significant stories that have happened in my life, and just making a note of it. And again, it goes back to more than likely big relationships and big events. How can that tie into a nonprofit that you can start the process of building a partnership with? So that's the second point, is the significant story piece. The third point that I got was about being present. You mentioned your ears open, your eyes open, just simply being present and asking someone if they need help. Where do they need help? It's interesting. Sometimes we ask, what can we do to help? And the response that we get is not the response we thought we were going to get. So that's really important as well. So Dan, thank you again. If people want to get more information on what you want to, on what you do, or if they want to reach out to you. So if they want to get more information on you, Dan Koval, or they simply have a question, what's the best place they can go to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm there hanging out all the time. Plenty of Dan Kovals, but I'm the one changing the world. I think I might be my new tagline now. I'm the one changing the world. But yeah, I'm happy to reach out. And I think just to reiterate the point from the beginning, Matt, right? Like your legacy of tomorrow has to start today. And so if you want that legacy, you have to start somewhere or sometime, and it might as well be today.
Absolutely. There are many Dan Kovals, but there is one, the Dan Koval, who is this man right here. Connect with him and learn more about what he does. Thanks again, Dan. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you for listening to the Stories with Traction podcast. Please leave a review, since positive reviews will make it easier for others to find this conversation. Next episode will launch on Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern. Until then, remember, if you want to persuade with power and inspire those around you to action, you must share more stories.